Okay, so welcome to the first reopening committee. Can everyone hear me? Wave to me if you can hear me. Okay, all right. So the first thing I'd like to say is if everyone could please mute, and this way we don't get that echo and that reverb. And if you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll pick you out, and then you can unmute and then we can move forward. Everyone has an agenda. John, I see you changed it a little bit since this afternoon. Yeah. Okay, so the order is different. So we're going to start with the first 2 days of school, Wednesday and Thursday. And Dr. Bell, I'm going to mute and you're going to take over.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I just figured everybody would like an update right out of the gate since we're only in day 2. The first 2 days have really gone pretty smoothly. Some of the, there's always bugs the first week of school. There's always computer issues. There's always password issues. There's always late school bus issues and things of that nature. Of course, now we compound it with so many kids in DV Cyber and 1,000 kids doing Zoom. So we've gotten emails that Zoom is great, and then we've gotten emails that there's been issues, whether it's a volume or a particular teacher in a room maybe got too far from the microphone because they were all the way in the back of the room or whatever. So I just wanted to say to anybody out there, if there are issues, please email your individual schools, because that's the way we can fix whatever we need to fix fastest. If you send it to me or to the board, then it has to work its way through to eventually get back to the building. So just please email the individual building, either your guidance counselor or the principal or whomever. But if you get it to the building, we can fix it faster, and that will help. But it has been 2 really, really good days. It's been very creative to see all the places where we eat lunch. In the high school, there's the 2 cafeterias, there's 1 gym, there's the stage in the auditorium and the pit. At the DV middle school, they have a huge cafeteria, so they can actually fit almost everybody in that cafeteria. Dingman's middle school uses their cafeteria, their auditorium stage, and their auxiliary gym. DV elementary is using the cafeteria, the lobby, the old computer lab, the art room, and the library. Shahola took everything from their cafeteria, and they have the whole gym as a cafeteria in the middle of the day. They literally set it up after the morning gym classes and then break it down after. And they were actually doing some gym stuff in the cafeteria, believe it or not. They were doing stretching and things like that in the cafeteria. So they just swapped spots. Dingman's primary uses the cafeteria, the music room, the art room, and one other room that I'm forgetting what they told me. And then Dingman's elementary is using the cafeteria, the stage, what was the guidance classroom. And I was around today. I visited all 7 schools between yesterday and today. And it's just great to see the kids in their new school clothes, their new haircut, their new sneakers, you know, and I think everybody was just happy to be back and relieved to just get back to some kind of normalcy. I mean, other than the mask, it really feels like normal. It really, really does. So it's been a really good 2 days. And just to send to you guys the thanks from the staff, because so many people have talked about what a difference having those 2 extra days, since this is a once in a lifetime type year, to take those 2 work days from the end and put them in the front to help, because everybody talked about how it just kind of de-stressed everything. It got everybody in the extra time to prepare and get them in the right frame of mind and everything. So it worked out well. So thank you for that. In your packet is just a list of some of the trainings that the teachers did. We also, just a shout out to one of our local residents, Steve Brzezinskis. Steve Brzezinskis is a retired teacher from Vernon. We call him Schoology Steve. He's a master trainer for Schoology, and he's a DV parent. And his one boy, Gavin, just retired or graduated last year and is at the Naval Academy, and his younger boy's still here. So he came Monday and Tuesday and spent 3 hours each morning helping us running extra sets of Schoology classes and helping people set up. He retired as a teacher, and he was one of he retired from Vernon, and they had sent him all over to be trained to be the trainer of other teachers. So he retired and said, hey, I've been using this for years if you need me. So he was at DV middle one day and Dingman's middle the next to help because we had trainers at the high school and trainers at the elementary. He filled that void and he was wonderful. So, and then Joy Sweller, Joy, who's a reading teacher at Dingman's Elementary, and Lori Ozapinski, who's a math teacher at the high school, also ran in services both days for huge numbers of people. So we thank both of those ladies. They also ran alternate in services in the summer to try to help people. So having those people at each level really helped a lot to get people at a much better place. So that training information's in there, but I just wanted to highlight those and open with that because it certainly was a positive. We had 2 great days. So knock on wood, we keep on chugging. So, okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, the HVAC system. And the guys came tonight from NRG. Maybe you guys, if you guys don't mind, you just introduce yourselves and then you can go ahead with your presentation.
Sure. Marvin had a little something if you want to.
Oh boy, I can't wait. Yeah.
Thanks for the invitation. Small enough to be responsive. They've helped us over the last 15 years really move our HVAC system out of an antiquated situation to a modern situation where we get cost savings, more efficiencies to the system, and more comfort for our visitors. I'm going to hand out and pass down, I should say, some common HVAC acronyms that you may hear tonight, or you may have seen on the parent surveys responses, or you may have seen on the teachers union 155 questionnaire.
So can I just ask everyone if they can hear Marvin? Just wave if you can hear Marvin.
Hey, maybe move yours a little closer to him since he doesn't have one.
Okay, you need to unmute. I'm gonna.
So Marvin, we're going to ask you to speak a little louder
Okay,
and into Peg's Zoom there.
can you hear me now?
Wave if you can hear Marvin.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jack.
Okay, here we go. So with that, I'd like to introduce Energy Controls and let them share with us some graphics on how we manage the HVAC systems and give you some differences between buildings and some similarities between buildings. And of course, we'll take any questions you may have at the end of the presentation. So Matt?
We may need a little assistance with the Zoom piece here, but I don't know if we're.
So it's Matt Holber and Frank Kiliak.
Kilianic.
Kilianic, I won't even try.
Thank you.
It was, it just.
Joey, can you help them get back in? I'm here at the computer.
So we're seeing this for the first time. Is it possible to get it to Brian and Jack? Take a
Yes.
picture on a phone?
Yeah, I'll take a picture of it right now.
Okay. So fellas, we're going to send it to you on your
Corey too,
phone.
right?
Yeah.
And Corey, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Presentation side, which is up there.
Okay, I'll just text it to those guys.
Why don't we do that and then we can switch? I think he passed it to the
Okay.
podium, so I think we can start there.
Somehow I got picked out.
Right.
Yeah, I think everybody did.
Yep. We're all picked up. So do I have a password to put in there, Julie?
I think they're street sharing, so I don't think I did that yet.
Oh, I did that and I did those. You just read
Yeah.
I'll keep trying to get. He's going up there.
Yeah, I think we're, because I see it on the screen there. That's where we're gonna present. So, you know, if he starts there and then I'll move up there when he's complete, so.
So for a password,
No, don't, that's our sign in. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
Always Alan.
We are, it's on the screen shares up, so.
I just don't know if that might.
So it looks like you want to start from the beginning. It looks like you're all red on the bottom there. So it looks like it's already moved.
Maybe just a play.
Yeah, it looks like it's already played.
Is he to control that?
I shouldn't, right?
Gremlins, there's always gremlins.
No, better have it at night than during the day.
That's right.
That's the YouTube screen itself.
Oh, that's the YouTube screen itself. Okay. So that would be the presentation
Right.
screen. Anybody see Frank?
No, you're not on video, but the YouTube is up, because it's on screen share. If we want the video, we have to put that.
Oh, I see what you're
It's
saying.
online.
Because that is live.
And that computer isn't logging on.
No, it's not logged in.
I'm gonna give you mine.
Oh.
Good, good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
So everyone can see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Wave if you can hear Frank. Oops. Wave if you can hear Frank.
I see Brian. Yep. Okay, so my name is Frank Kilianik with NRG Controls. I'm account executive for our company for your account. I've been with NRG only for 2 years. I have about 30 years in the design engineering and construction and controls business. So I can speak a little bit about our history overall, but specifics about what we've done with the school district. Matt Holbert is going to speak to those aspects because we are a Sealands Grove company. Our home office is in Sealands Grove. I live in the Pittston area, and Matt is local. So we represent a large portion of northeastern Pennsylvania, but we do our best to focus on each and every customer. So we do the best for them with local presence. NRG North has been in business since about 1999, 2000. We represent Schneider Electric product as our field control devices, and Tritium is our overall supervisory control system that we will be logging into to show you the HVAC system graphics for each of the buildings in the school district that we have controls in. We also, in addition to the building automation system that we have been working on for a number of years, we also do, as Marvin said, card access for the school district. And we also provide mechanical services to help out with the HVAC maintenance and repair. I don't want to take a lot of time talking about our history unless there are specific questions, because we want to spend most of our time discussing the the graphics and the capabilities of the graphics to explain those systems to you so that you can understand what the investment is that the school district has made over the years. Many customers, it's a huge investment from a monetary standpoint. And what I've seen over my career is that most customers don't embrace the system as their own. You guys have made the investment for the public, for the parents and students within the school district and the taxpayers. And the school district does a very good job. Marvin does a very good job of having his staff and himself utilize the tool that you made the investment in, so that you can reap the benefits of the investment that you made. It helps with energy savings, understanding of system operation so that you can troubleshoot problems before they occur. There's remote access is a huge benefit of the system, so that your personnel can look at the systems from their home on a secure network, so that you're saving time, so that people don't have to be driving to look at things and try to figure out systems. They can look at those systems remotely, which saves them, the time of running in and looking at something. And it also saves the time of them being able to look at something much quicker, because they have instant access to the system. And it helps you proactively look at aspects of the system to see if something's happening, if there are problems with airflow. So it can be used as a very proactive tool. The school district maintenance staff does that. So you can be proud of what they do. And we appreciate the opportunity to be involved in the school district and help you with utilizing the tool that you've made the investment in. We are going to review the BAS system graphics, and Matt's going to go through each one of the school systems independently. And then, one other thing that I'd like to say before I turn it over to Matt is that we also appreciate the opportunity to get involved with your design professionals for the CapEx projects, because when we are involved early, it gives us an opportunity to work with the design professionals to help them operate more efficiently in their design aspect, because we know the system from being involved as long as we have. Any questions that they might have, we can alleviate some of the time that it might take for them to investigate something if we are involved and able to give them the information up front. So we appreciate the opportunity to have that chance to do that. And it helps us work with the design professional to incorporate some energy savings and efficiency operations into their design, so that it helps the school district operate more efficiently and cost effectively. And then once Matt is done, we can open it up to a question and answer period if anybody has any specific questions. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Matt Holbert.
Thanks, Frank. So before I start on the demonstration, I'll just quickly let you know who I am, what I do here. I'm the Director of Engineering for NRG. I started out as a technician with Delaware Valley School District, as well as some of the other local school districts. So I started out crawling around in these ceilings of this building, as well as all the other schools. So I really got to learn the buildings inside and out. And, thank you to NRG, but they, through the years have promoted me up, and now I'm working as an engineer and designing the systems that are going into your facilities. I stay involved now. I still come to the facilities frequently. Marvin still sees me and Chris still see me doing service calls. I just came down not long ago and did a repair, and I saw Bill. So I think it's good for any company that's working within the communities to have some folks that are local. And I live in Greentown. I coach baseball for kids that go to Delaware Valley School District. And, I appreciate that NRG has had the relationship for now. I'm with NRG 19 years, and we've been with Delaware Valley for 19 years, and we appreciate that. Thank you. So With that, I'd like to start the demonstration of the graphical interface that you guys have purchased. What I'll try to do is I'll try to go through each building. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the mechanical systems. I'll try to go at a pace that works, and you know, and stop me if you will, if you want to ask a question or anything like that. I guess that's it. I'll start that now. So I guess, Alan, if you could do the screen, he's already on. Let him go. So basically your maintenance folks sign into this every single day. And when they sign in, they have the ability to select which building. So Marvin has assigned certain maintenance staff to each facility. So, you know, a person might be signing into the same building every day, but they have the ability to see the other buildings so they can support each other. So if something happens at Dingman's and Terry's not there that day, you know, somebody from down here could dial in and check something out from there, or, you know, from their phone for that matter, they can actually connect to. So all these things are web-based. They're able to collect right to their phones and be able to see whatever they need to see. What I'd like to do, instead of getting into the nitty-gritties of how to operate the system, which would be more of a training thing, I'll walk through some of the HVAC systems so that you have an idea of what you have in each building. I'd like to start with the district office here, just because we're in here, and talk quickly about that. The heating side of things is a hot water plant off of natural gas, which is most of this campus, is I think all of this campus, if we talked right, is now natural gas, which was a conversion a few years. You know, we were still running on oil. I'm sure Bill's pleased now that we're running on natural gas. Very simple system, you know, obviously not a really large building. We're looking at a couple of pumps and a boiler. That's the heating plant that serves off of an air handling unit. So Marvin had passed out a sheet with an AHU. You'll see that acronym. Air handling unit is a piece of equipment that is going to supply air to the vents here in each room. And the air conditioning comes from the air handling unit. There's also gas heat on that unit that allows for heating morning warm up. But it also, once the morning warm up has completed, each room can get its own independent temperature control. Instead of, you know, one thermostat controlling the entire building, we actually have thermostats in each room so that we can separate some of that control. So you're probably going to see as we go, you might see some alarms, you might see some different things. This is an active live system. So as we look at things, you're going to see temperatures, you know, the discharge air temperature right now, you can feel the air conditioning running. It's 49 degrees. So, you know, you're gonna notice some things that are live. They might be broken. Who knows? We don't know right at this point. But just so you know, you might see some anomalies. So air handling equipment reheats to supply warmth to rooms as they need them. We shut the boiler down during the summer so that you don't waste energy. So the boiler won't be running unnecessarily. We do that automatically. So instead of, you know, somebody has to go and turn switches off when it gets too warm, you know, we do that through programming. So the district office simply put some fresh air. Oh, I wanted to hit the filtration. So the air handling unit acts as the fresh air unit to the space, as well as the filtration of that air. So there's filters out in the unit that sits out in the back here. So the fresh air comes through that filter, the return air back from the building goes through that filter, it gets cleaned, and then you're getting fresh supplied air to the facility. Marvin probably have to answer how often the filters are changed and such like that. But, you know, as far as I can tell, the maintenance staff does a good job. They stay up on a regimen of filter changes and cleanings.
So while he's changing the slides, we changed all the filters right before school opened. It takes 2 men about a week to do this campus. There's a lot of filters. We plan on doing that at the end of each marking period, which is more than double what we have done in the past.
One other thing I'd like to add, Matt, real
Yeah.
quick, through your school district had in the past pneumatic controls, and we've gone through over the years and upgraded to directional controls, DDC. controls. Those controls allow you to operate your buildings a lot more efficiently. Also from the standpoint of when the building is not occupied, we're able to set the system into an unoccupied period so that it allows the heating and cooling to go to different set points than you would when the building were occupied. So that helps save money from not having to cool, say tonight, when the meeting is over tonight, the system will go into an unoccupied mode. It won't be cooling to 70, 72, whatever the set point is.
He's speaking to a normal summer. This summer, we were occupied, with the dampers open to bring fresh air into the buildings every day, 24/7. So our energy costs are probably going to be a little higher, but because of COVID, that's what we felt we had to do.
But the nice thing with the DDC system is you have that opportunity to make those changes in one location on the computer, and you could do that for all of your buildings.
I'll show some simple demonstrations of that as well as I go through. But good point, Frank.
Thank
And
you.
most of the pneumatics are we had Marvin and I have worked on some plans to eliminate a little bit of some pieces that are left, but most of it is It's gone.
Pneumatics is a high maintenance system. You need a little air leak, that means that you're not getting the right operation efficiencies. The digital is much more controllable.
So I can work through the PE building kind of fast because it's very similar to the system that's here. I just wanted to show a slide I have with the floor plan, and each and every room in your district that has a temperature sensor back to our system is reported to a floor plan like this. So your maintenance staff can, or whoever can pop in and see in a snapshot what it is the temperatures, and in some case humidities are in the facility. So, as you can see here, you're looking at the PE building and the room temperatures there. As far as systems go, it's identical. There's a boiler, there's an air handler. It's the same as this building. So I'm not gonna walk through that identically. So really the same thing there. One thing you'll see here is this Jace. You'll see Jace 2. So the Jaces are how we talk to everything through a network. There's a Jace in each building, and then the larger buildings have multiple Jaces. Those devices talk on the network that we coordinate with your IT department for addressing and communications back to a server that sits in here in the district office. So all that data comes back in from that Jace into some language and programming, and then it's served back to a server that allows this nice graphical display to happen. And we have programmers that manage these things on a regular basis. They check on them as well as make repairs, things of that nature. So I'll move kind of quickly past the PE because it's equal to the district office. The high school. The high school has a lot of different systems throughout it. What I'd like to do is just hit a couple of them so you can kind of get a feel for what's there. You made a large investment back in 2014 to put in air conditioning in a lot of classrooms. It was around 100 unit ventilators throughout the district. In the high school, there was a good chunk of that. And what I'll do is I'll click on what we made as a reference page, because that's a daunting task for someone to be able to just gather all that data from that many classrooms and try to bring it together. Here we go. I said you might see some alarms here. Those guys changed the filters. We need to go reset the alarms that they changed them. So that's kind of neat. We can alarm the system to say, hey, you got to change your filter. And then, they can get that alarm and then they can reset it. So we need to go through and reset those alarms now that the filter has been changed. So I'm just going to click on a unit ventilator. Quickly, a unit ventilator, if you've been in the classrooms, you see they're just looks like a shelf and the air flows out of that. And kind of noisy, kind of annoying at times, but they're the important piece to your heating and air conditioning and refrigerating and your ventilation for each classroom. There's so many different types that I don't want to get into rabbit holes. I just want to talk about, simply put, you're bringing fresh air. I'm going to click on the graphic so you can see it. You're bringing fresh air in, okay? You're bringing return air back, and that mixes at a certain rate, right? So if I say, for this room, I'm going to open up the damper 5%, or I'm gonna open up that damper 25%, we're gonna get a mix of 75 to 25, okay? And then as you need more fresh air, we have the ability to increase that. So we can increase it by an override, or we can increase it by changing set points, things of that nature. So the unit ventilator, then the fan part of it is pulling the air, you know, through the mixing box. We call this a mixing box, and then it's blowing out through that grill that you see at the top. Okay, so you're bringing that fresh air from the outside, mixing it with the return from the room, and then you're blowing it back into the room.
Each room has its own unit ventilator. It's only for that room. It's only dedicated to that room. When it gets into RTUs, that's a different subject.
Right, and I'll try to hit on a little bit of each of them. I want to lose you within what you know, the details of each type of equipment. It's just giving you an overview of what you have and being able to see. You know,
And each one of those unit ventilators has filtration so that the return air and the outside air that's coming through the heating or cooling section of it, the air is filtered.
So in those cases, it's contained to the classroom, it's not going back out and then filtered through all the other classrooms.
Correct. It's per room, I'm sorry, in the building.
So what I'm trying to relate to is if there's an incident in that room, it's
Right.
contained to that room. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Right.
So as far as the high school goes, there's a large boiler room. I don't know if anybody's been in that boiler room, but it's a pretty large boiler room that was just renovated here recently. And natural gas heat from that side. So the boilers are brand new. Last year, I think we did the boilers, right? So boilers, the pumping system and stuff is still existing. You know, that pumps the water to the unit ventilators for heating. Okay, so that's how we're providing the heat, is through water. It's a conversion from gas through a heat exchanger to water, and then the water flows to allow heat to the unit ventilators, rooftops and such. From an air conditioning standpoint, each classroom has rooftop air conditioning units. They're small condensing units, basically, that direct expansion, they provide air conditioning to each unit independently. So while the boiler plant is more of a global thing, that's providing heat to all the rooms. Each room has its own air conditioning unit specific. Okay. Like I said, there's so many different pieces of that, because as I talk about the middle school, it's a little bit different. As you know, each building is slightly different, but that's the gist of the high school when it comes to the heating and the unit ventilators. What I'd like to do is click on, and as you can see it, like I said, it's kind of daunting as you start to talk about equipment and rooms, and you know, there's so much stuff as you start to look at it. I'm just going to pick a rooftop unit because we talked about RTUs. The gymnasium in the high school is fairly new, so I'd like to pick that if I could. In this case, this is kind of an interesting system here, where again, you're bringing in fresh air, you're bringing in return air, but in this case here, we have an exhaust fan directly on that unit. So that air that's coming back is actually getting exhausted directly through that rooftop unit. Where in a unit ventilator case, you know, the air that's in that room, it has to escape through cracks, crevices, different ways out of the building at that point, the exhaust side of it. But this exhaust fan is directly out of the building right there. I'll show you another slide later that is really good with the Delaware Valley Elementary School and some exhaust systems and how that works. Pretty neat. For those that think it's neat, I think it's neat. So, but yeah, rooftop units. So this is a large box you see sitting on top of a roof. You know, that's the ventilation for the main gym. There's two units up there. You know, they're fairly new, very efficient equipment.
One of the things I'd like to point out, Matt, on a graphic like this, you know, again, I like to look at again, it's a tool. It's a tool that the school district made an investment in. You can see, you don't have to go to the room to see what the temperature is to look on the thermostat. It's telling you what the mixed air temperature is that's being discharged through the unit. It's telling you the fan is commanded on and it is running. You could see the fan is running. It tells you what the discharge air temperature is, the supply air temp of that unit is 72.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Through the service contract that we have with the school district, we calibrate those devices regularly so that we know that that information is accurate. If we find that it is not accurate as we're doing our preventative maintenance, we'll look at it and figure out what might be wrong with it and bring those details to Marvin's attention so that your staff can take a look at it and we can assist with helping. But it's a wonderful tool to be able to utilize, again, to increase efficiency of not having to physically be going and looking at parts and pieces. You can view this information from any computer that's on the school's network.
Yeah, adding to that, each teacher has their own level of temperature, so we can tailor and customize each room to that teacher. Some like it a little warmer, some like it a little cooler. If you're on a system that covers several rooms, it's hard to do that. But with this automated system, we can pretty well set the temperature within a degree. I mean, yesterday I had the teacher write a work order, said it was warm. We checked the airflow coming in, and the temperature in the room was 70.1. Now, 70.1 is probably pretty good for the rest of us, but we dropped the temperature a degree. She's happy.
Another aspect of the tool is you can trend the data and record it so that if somebody has a complaint about, geez, it's always freezing cold in this room, you can check that and see over time, well, it's been 72 to 74 degrees on average. That's not really freezing. It might be uncomfortable because everybody has different comfort levels, but you have that ability to trend and track and look at that information to analyze it. Here's a trend, right, that Matt pulled
I
up.
was following along with you, buddy.
Thank you. So this trend
That's
is for
just
an
the
air handler.
Temperature, yeah. just
It
the
shows your
for the air
temperature to what it
handler. That is
is
really
every
handy
day.
for your maintenance folks because, if it's a person that is saying it's warm or cold or whatever regularly, sometimes you can't tell whether you're actually having a problem at that moment or maybe it's an intermittent problem. You can start to find these problems by taking the trend logs. And I'm not going to get into the details of it, but you can actually take and put multiple trends on the screen at one time. And you can follow and see the water valve, what it's doing, the damper, what it's doing. Oh, wait a minute. That water valve isn't supposed to be open at that time, and then see that something happened there. And you can troubleshoot basically to the point where you haven't gone to the room yet, but you almost know what the problem is before you get there. So then, they can call us and say, hey, we think there's a problem in that room. Bring a water valve with you because we think that's the problem.
Otherwise, it's trial and error. We look at this, we try that, doesn't work, we try that. This gets us right to the heart of the problem.
So I clicked on an air handling unit. Air handling units and rooftop units are very similar. The only difference is you're sticking an air handling unit in a mechanical room somewhere indoors. Otherwise, they're really very similar in nature. The ventilation side of it, as well as the air conditioning, is very close in relation. So, you have mechanical rooms throughout your facilities that are, air handlers hidden up in mezzanines and above ceilings. And, there's equipment all over the place that is unseen and potentially unheard, but there's a controller somewhere and some digital controls that is maintaining that piece of equipment to be able to make sure it's running. And when we first started working on some of this with the pneumatics and stuff, we were coming across the equipment that I think because you don't have the graphic showing you that the filter needs changed or the temperature, that it's sight unseen and you forget about it a little bit. And now we find, it's easier. You know that piece of equipment because it's right here on a graphic. It's not above a ceiling somewhere, so I think we see that stuff more often now. So it's kind of another almost mental feature there that helps out. So real quick on the high school, had to do the floor plan in multiple different phases because it's so large. Every time I bring a new technician here to Delaware Valley to work, they go, where am I? Because they can't find their way around the buildings. They'll get to a point and they're like, so being one floor is really interesting for new people coming around. It took me a long time to realize where everything was, but You know, as far as these floor plans go, they're a really nice feature. And you know, you'll see the gray area here. These are unoccupied spaces that have gone unoccupied. The people have left the classroom, and they're no longer in use. I'm gonna hit on one of these real quick to hit another feature that I think is really neat. We made an investment back in 1999 to change some lighting. Bill would remember this with Inventus. They installed occupancy sensors at that time for the HVAC system, but there was no digital controls. It was all just pneumatic. So you didn't know what that occupancy sensor was doing. Now we've tied those occupancy sensors into the HVAC equipment, so we can actually say there's nobody in there. Turn that thing off, right? So probably 80% of the classrooms, I wouldn't say it's all, because there's quite a few rooms that got added and changed over the years that don't have the occupancy sensor. But you know, the future of that, as we progress, we could add those to the rest of the buildings. But you can see occupancy sensor here. There's nobody in there, so kind of a neat feature. You know, we can say, hey, nobody's in there. What we do is we just kind of settle it back for a few minutes. So if they go to lunch and they're back in 20 minutes, we don't want the room to drop by 5 degrees, because they'll come back and be like, oh boy. So we just let it drop by a couple of degrees, stop bringing in that fresh air that we have to pay for each time you do that, and then turn it back on when somebody walks back in the room. So pretty neat feature.
How does the occupancy sensor know when they're there or they're not?
It's-
Is it a heat thing?
It's a proximity, so it's kind of looking at what's the word? Frank?
It's a passive
Infrared.
infrared.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah, infrared.
PIV.
Yeah, so it's heat. I guess infrared would be
Right.
considered heat. So it's looking at the temperature of the body. Yeah. Yep. There, believe it or not, you know, for 19 years, I think I've replaced 5 of those occupancy sensors, maybe 10. And we're talking hundreds of them in the district. That's pretty impressive that they lasted that long. You know, I think they're, you know, it might be starting to go a little faster. I might be doing a few a year, but still, that's great. The energy that you've saved in that time compared to what we've done to replace one for $100 is really pretty good. So moving through this campus here, the middle school. So the middle school had some additions and alterations done while I was here. The building itself was built, but there was a lot of stuff going on around the 2000, 2001 time where some stuff was added. There was a chiller added. So this is a new word here, chiller, where we're not making cooling with those little boxes on the roof. We're actually making it with a chilled water plant. So there's a unit sitting out on the ground that is running the air conditioning, and then it's cooling water, and then the water is providing the cold water to the unit ventilators we talked about earlier, right? So now we're doing it a little bit different way within the middle school. There's 2 chiller plants down there. One was installed by I don't know the year. Marvin, you might know the year.
Courtyard.
Yeah, the one in the courtyard by Train, I think, was like 95, Bill. I don't know, something like that. And the other one was around 2001. You know, and those chiller plants, we just keep them running and maintaining them. So that's a little bit different. Like I said, you have a lot of different systems, and you've done a lot of renovations and mechanical things over the years. And
Just for point of reference, the high school is 1970 for the 11-12 side, 1988 and 1996 on the 9-10 side. The middle school is 1996, 2001. And another time when I was gone in the mid-2000s when we connected the F to the C. I want to say maybe 04 or something like that. So each one has 3 different years of construction in both those buildings.
yeah, this is the wing.
Additions we had to do.
No, is that right? F, yeah, here. This is the office and stuff that was added about that time. So, yeah. But the chiller plant, like I said, that's a little different. That's the only chiller plant you have throughout the district is in the Delaware Valley Middle School. The rest of it is, well, we'll get into heat pumps in a few minutes here, but the rest of it is mostly unit ventilators with hot water and DX cooling, they call it, which is the small little units on the roof. So that you have a chiller plant in there. So that's kind of an interesting difference throughout that building. I don't need to get into unit ventilators. We already talked about that. One thing I'm going to hit real quick is VAV. VAV stands for variable air volume. If you're on your little cheat sheets there, I don't know if it's on there or not, but VAV there's a rooftop unit now that serves multiple spaces similar to this room, but the difference on a VAV is there's a damper inside the duct that opens and closes to allow more or less air into each space. So in that case, if I can find them. See, there's a VAV. That's a nice graphic too. You know, there's a controller and a damper, and you can see that, you know, that damper allows fresh air coming from the rooftop, and then we can restrict that, you know, more or less based on what the room's calling for. Do I need more cooling? Do I need more heating? Do I need to ventilate the air a little bit more? So we have programming written to be able to handle that and manage the amount of airflow. So as you can see here, we have 646 CFM, cubic feet per minute, entering that room right now. The air is coming from a rooftop unit. We're gonna be experts when we leave here today. Marvin's got the test. I'll touch on the Career Technology Center real quick, just because that was one of the most recent investments the district made here. In that area was mostly rooftop units. Well, we got a colorful event going on right there. Like I said, this is a live system. We could have some things locked out, overridden, or things of that nature. But real quick, in that area, brand new rooftop units for all of the spaces, air conditioning. There's some unit ventilators down there. I don't think I need to go real deep. I just wanted to touch on it real quick because, you know,
So real quick, again,
there's
if
energy
you have an
recovery unit.
incident with service, room service by an RTU, you have to be concerned about the other rooms. Because it's not dedicated to one room. So if it services 2 shops, two labs, if you have an incident, you got to take care of the other place too.
Yeah, fair point, especially with
Our
that
reaction to that is different.
that
depending on the
VAV
situation.
system for the middle school where your rooftop unit is serving 20 different rooms. I'll go back to that just so you can see that a little clearer. This is a locker room down in that CTE area. This is called an energy recovery unit, where in this case, we bring fresh air straight in. We don't mix that with the return air. It's going through a heat exchanger here, which is this wheel, and then it exits the building. So the air is they never touch each other. And that's common for locker rooms, any area. You know, it would be wonderful in this COVID time where we could just say every room gets an energy recovery. That's just not commonplace. We're not gonna be able to do that, right? But you do have some of that equipment typically done in locker rooms and areas where you're trying to get rid of, you know, smells and things of that nature. So I'll go back to that real quick, Marvin, because that's a good point to make there with the middle school, the VAV. You'll see.
Matt, can I ask you?
That
Can I ask
rooftop
question?
unit is serving everything in color. Everything that's gray here is a unit ventilator. These are all VAVs. So these 6 classrooms right here are actually served by one rooftop unit. So that air of all those rooms it returns from the room back to the rooftop unit, all mixes together, and then it dumps back into the room. So in this case here, unlike the other classrooms that are independent of each other, you're actually mixing all that air together.
So if something has one room, then we're just all set. Because of the way the airflow is.
You unmuted, John.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a really important point you're making. I want it to be on.
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to make a point. Because all 6 rooms share the same air handling, that means if something happens in one room, we would disinfect all 6 rooms just as a precaution. So that's why, as we've done different construction at different times, it's so important for Marvin's guys to understand the airflow of what ones are independent and which ones are linked, because that will affect the cleaning and disinfecting as well. It's great to have these graphics to see it too.
Why are those blinking red?
The 2 offices are pretty hot. That's the
Yeah.
principal
Yeah.
and assistant principal's office.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
trying
it
to
should be hot.
sweating with the oldies, I call it.
Matt, can I ask you a question?
Or, yeah, it's a little warm in there. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Okay, so
Like I said,
the
live
temperature
system,
is
I'd
above where-
love to say that I knew the answer. Yeah, it's just above the threshold of the alarm.
Gotcha.
So, and that's the only reason. Why that is, I'm not sure at this, I'd have to, get into it with our Marvin staff and my technicians. But yeah, I like seeing that stuff because I know it's working,
Yeah.
So if it wasn't happening, then I knew something was wrong with our system. So,
I have a question. Are those 6 classrooms connected because of the chiller system?
no, good question. In this instance, the air is connected, not the water. Okay, so the water is the chiller. They're connected because there's a single, very large rooftop unit that serves this entire space right here, which is a pretty large area. So because that design connected all of the spaces at that time, you got one air supply that does the entire space there.
And in 2001, that was an addition that was added to the middle school. That area that's in green, that was the entire addition. It used to stop after those 6 rooms, and it just went out into the grass. And then later on in the 2000s, they built more rooms in the F-wing and they connected it. But literally where those 6 rooms are, it used to just stop and go out to a field.
Right.
And then as we needed more space, we had to eventually grow it. But that's probably why it was one big unit, because it was just a small addition to create a 6th grade wing in the middle school.
Matt, can you hear me at all?
Right, yep. They're at post 2001. Sometime when I was gone in the mid 2000s, they did that gray going to the left and then connected it to the gray going down.
Jack O'Leary, do you have a question? I see you're unmuted.
I do. I've been trying to get in. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me all right on
I
this?
guess not.
Yeah, so it doesn't
Yeah.
carry up, but this is the connection. It goes here, right? So that's the connection right there. So everything ended here, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It all ended here, and then you just made it all connect back. The chiller actually sits here. That's the chill. One of the chillers is sitting there, and the other one is about here. And there's 2 chillers there. This is the mechanical plant.
I had a text with Corey saying Jack had a question. Maybe he can't. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't hear
Jack,
me.
go ahead and ask your question.
I'm trying to. I think I'm muted.
He's talking. I see it, but I can't.
Yeah, it's showing that your
Yeah, I
speaker is
know.
unmuted, but I can't hear you.
I know. I
Oh,
know.
now I hear you.
Okay, you got me in now?
Yeah.
Okay, so listen, Matt, I want to go back to what you were saying about the locker rooms. I'm a steam fitter, so I know what you're talking about. Everything you have, I run pipe to. What I wanted to talk to you guys about was in the nursing area, can we set it up like a contamination room in a hospital or in a clean room or something like that, where we have fresh air coming in and then we're getting rid of the contaminated air out? Can we do that through the VAVs or through the air handlers or through the dampers? I've not been up in our ceilings, so I don't know what they look
space
like.
Are we talking about?
Nurse's office.
Oh, the nurse's office. Yeah. My guess is no. The answer would probably have to go to, an architect, mechanical engineer. That's a little bit beyond me, and I don't know the nurse's office is enough to say that, yeah, that can be done. I'm going to say most times the answer is no. These buildings were not designed for, isolation.
Okay,
That's my quick answer. I
that-
think that would be a really good answer for Martin Rogers.
okay, I know we can bring in auxiliary units to get the air out of the things. You've seen them on construction sites with the hoses going out the window, the big box fans. So we can create negative air in there. Can we shut
agree with
off? Yes, but can we shut off the dampers in those nursing areas or those areas we want to make a contamination area for if a child is suspected of COVID until the parents come get the child or the employee? Can we control the dampers to kill the return air coming out of that nurse's office or contamination area?
So what we would do in that case was,
And I have yours. I'll give Marvin.
Jack, what we would do in a case of the nurse's office is shut the RTU off. And that would make other people around the nurse's office uncomfortable. And then turn the exhaust fan on so that we're taking quote unquote undesirable air out.
Right, like in the locker rooms.
In case
Exactly.
there was a student in that location until they're picked up by their parents. Then we would disinfect before we turn the unit back on.
Okay, so we can, exactly when Matt was talking about the locker rooms, getting rid of that air, can we do that in our system? Because I don't know our system, Marvin. I've not been up and down ceilings at all, so I don't know where it's blowing out to. Can we do that and suck that air out of that air, out of that area?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is you need to exhaust it. So how that's done is, it's every nurse's office and everyone is going to be different. I'm sure confident there's exhaust fans in the nurse's offices, all of them. So a matter of shutting down whatever's supplying air to each office and then making sure the exhaust fan is running should create a negative pressure.
Right. Well, we can go get auxiliary fans. That's not a major catastrophe or a major expenditure. I just want to make sure that we can shut the return air off so that it's not sucking back into the system. You know,
the fan would have to be shut off. There's no independent dampers per se. I think we would have to shut the equipment off and then allow the exhaust to run.
all right, but could we put a blank, could we put a blank plate in those areas? Would that be sufficient to kill the return in those areas if we wanted to go that way?
I didn't hear the beginning of them.
Okay, in those areas where we have the return duct, can we put a blank flange on that, a blind flange, or blank it off? Would that be okay, or would that overall contaminate or hurt the system?
Yeah, I don't think we would want to add any mechanical devices to stop it on a regular basis. Maybe a set of dampers added later might be okay.
We have to redesign the whole system.
Right.
Yeah, I'm looking for a quick fix on the thing.
A suspected case, they have to let our maintenance people know immediately so that we can shut down the ventilation so it doesn't spread.
Right. Okay. Last question I got for you on this is just the MERV rating on our filters. Because I know the clean rooms I'm in, they got to be 20, and the nuclear facilities that I've been in, they got to be around 19. I'm hearing that these MERV ratings have to be 13 to 15. I don't know if that is correct. And what is our MERV rating on our filters right now?
What the MERV rating of your filters that were installed is?
We use 20s and 30s filters you're talking
Yeah,
about?
the MERV rating of the filters. Okay. Marvin's answering with 20 to 30 range. I honestly don't know. We don't change the filters. That would be Marvin,
Well, the higher the number, the finer the filter. But what happens is the system is designed for 20s and 30s because the power of the fan to draw the air through the filter. If you go to 50, your fan is going to overwork and you'll burn up your fans.
Right. God's honest truth, I only know they went to 20. I thought the MERV rating, the highest it was 20 in a clean room. You know, we do these clean rooms in pharmaceutical places and manufacturing plants, and the highest I've ever seen was 20. So, all right. So what are we running, Marvin? What are the MERV ratings of the filters that we're installing?
What are the ratings of the filters that you have installed?
Just a minute, Jack.
Okay, thanks.
So Jackie said 20 and 30.
Well, those are sufficient for clean rooms, so we should be fine with those.
Good.
Okay, that was my questions. Thanks very much. I appreciate you coming.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it. So what I'd like to do is move to the Dingman's campus and kind of move through this a little faster now that we've kind of touched on a lot of different systems here and the way our system operates. So I'll just start with the Dingman's Primary School here. In this case, as we start to get into the talk about heat pumps, there's a couple buildings that you have that have heat pumps in them, this being one of them. Heat pumps work a little differently. They have the heating and air conditioning built right into the equipment, and then we have cooling towers and boilers that heat the water that goes to those. I'm not going to get into all the details of how it functions, but the bottom line is there's a major mechanical plant that provides the heat, and instead of having a chiller like we talked about earlier, you have a cooling tower. So each of them has a cooling tower, and you're taking that. So if we're in cooling mode and the heat pump is creating cooling, what it does is it generates heat into the pipe, and we have to get rid of that somehow. So in many cases, you hear people have, you know, water source heat pumps where they take the heat and they put it down into the ground. In your case, you're putting it out this cooling tower. So during the summer, the cooling tower is running really hard and the fans are running, and we're getting rid of the heat that's in the building, and we're putting it in the pipe, and then we're blasting it out into the atmosphere. That air is not connected to the ventilation. They're not married. There's a heat exchanger that separates them. The ventilation air is completely separate from any of the other air that would be on this cooling tower.
A cooling tower is a little bit of a misnomer. It's more like a tank. Like at the elementary school, it's on legs, it sticks up above the ground about 6 feet. It's a huge tank.
Yeah, so we fill them in the spring. Once we come out of winter, we fill them with water. The water rolls over a tower and cools these coils, which feeds the water back into the building at a colder temperature, allowing the air conditioning to run. Pretty neat feature, actually. So heat pumps, very much like a univentilator. If you walked into Dingman's Primary School and looked at the univentilator, you'd say that's the same thing they have at the high school. It is. The box looks the same, but the mechanical workings of it are completely different. They're not even close. They work in totally different ways. The ventilation side of things is very equal. So the air comes in, just like we talked about earlier, air comes in fresh, mixes with the return, and then blasts back into the room, right? So the ventilation side is very equal. The heating and cooling, totally different. We don't need to get into the details of how that functions, but just understand that there's many different types of systems throughout your district. And heat pump, HP, and your cross-reference sheet that Marvin provided. So within that building, you also have a couple of rooftop units. It's interesting that you can have a rooftop heat pump. So now we're same things. We got univentilators, we got fan coil type units, FCs, and then we have rooftop units. In this case, we have rooftop heat pumps. So we're doing the same thing. We got a can sitting up on the roof, brings in fresh air, mixes it with return air, and then we heat and cool it through the cooling tower and the boiler plant. Simple stuff. At Dingman's, we've added a feature here because years ago, 1 meter, right, Bill? 1 meter at Dingman's tells us all the power that's used. We don't know which buildings use what. We have no idea. So what's going on? We added power meters to each building so that we could actually see what the usage is in each building and find out where all that energy is going. We found out that the Dingman's Middle School was the worst, and you invested in some upgrades there, and I think we've reduced energy at the Dingman's campus. So
just so you know, when I have a good year in facilities and I have a few extra bucks, that's where I put it. We did this metering out of the general fund. There's something else you mentioned earlier, but I did out of the general fund. It's an investment for the future, and it helps us in the long run.
That's why I say you've invested in the tool and you're utilizing it so that you're making sure that your system's operating more efficiently by making the investment and using the tool correctly.
you can actually see in this graphic here, this trend log here, you can see the usage day to day. And the load time is your nighttime. Here's a weekend. So you can see, oh, we peaked a little bit, and then here's our weekend. Oh, back to school, So it's interesting that you can see that. Mostly,
It was a Jace that we did this spring, remember?
yeah,
Upgraded.
upgraded Jace, yeah. Yep, which there may be more of that. So, yeah, it helps us understand what's happening. Sometimes we can see anomalies that are going on with the energy usage that lead us to a problem with the HVAC system. So we'll come in and we'll see some things going on within this graphic here, and then that'll lead us to start poking around. What's going on? Something seems wrong, you know? We might find out you changed the schedule. You're now having something happening in the gym at night that I didn't know that was happening, you know? So I just flag it, call Terry and see what's going on. And Terry says, oh, we changed the schedule and now we're running something in the gym at night. Okay, good. Or no, I don't have anything going on. Let's investigate that further. So, the elementary school was part of that large renovation that happened in 2014. About 30 unit ventilators got replaced in that building. So that got air conditioning in 2014 for most of the classrooms, and I think all of them have it now. In that case, you got a hot water plant and same thing, unit ventilators like you have here. DX cooling with those little boxes up on the roof for air conditioning.
Good. You have new boilers, more efficient
good point.
there also.
Good point. Yeah.
The oldest two buildings are the original. The oldest two buildings are the original high school, 1970, and Dingman's Elementary, 1982. So they were the boilers that were replaced in the summer of 19. As we try to go through that phase of replacing the boilers, we hit the oldest buildings first.
Yeah, so from there, I just quickly hit Shahola because Shahola and Dingman's, I think Shahola's older or newer, right? So they're almost a mimic of each other. When you look at the mechanical systems, they're almost identical. The building's slightly different as far as structure goes, but the design of the mechanical systems is identical. There's, in some cases, I get lost when I walk in the building and I forget which building I'm in. So I'm in there and I'm like, oh, the Jace's in this room, and I find out, oh no, I'm at Dingman's, not at Shahola. So I gotta reorient myself because they're not in the same place. But for the most part, they're identical buildings. One thing we did at Shahola, there were some humidity issues. We had once the basement, which was a storage area for a long time, was turned into classrooms. We started to run the air conditioning and such there, and we kept continuing having humidity issues. Never really found the exact problem other than it's underground, but we added humidity sensors to each of those rooms. As you can see here, we're reading humidity, and we created some programming to try to alleviate some of those humidity issues. Because you have air conditioning, you'd think, oh, you have air conditioning, you should be able to, get rid of that moisture. Well, that's not always the case, because as you drop the dew point in a room and you continue to drop that, your humidity will actually start to go up. And that's why we were finding paper was wet, floors were wet, and we couldn't really figure out why. Marvin added some dehumidifiers.
If you lower the air thinking it's gonna take care of the humidity, you'll get moisture. Like
Correct.
Gym floors and things like that, because it's too opposite of one another. The air in and air that's there.
Yeah, so by changing the dew point, it was causing us problems. We thought we were lowering the temperature, we'd solve the problem, and that wasn't the case. So we changed some programming around so that we can try to solve some of that issue. Worked, I would say, a little bit, not 100%, but it definitely helped, and
Improved.
adding dehumidifiers helped.
Complaints are way down.
So, yeah. So Shahola, now the airport park, I meant to go to this earlier, but this is also a heat pump building. Newer, obviously, but it has a cooling tower and a mechanical plant. So you have a couple high efficiency of boilers in there and cooling tower. And in this case, the HX, that's probably not on your acronym sheet. Sorry about that. Heat exchanger, it might be on there. We're lucky. So we're exchanging that heat through the boilers and the cooling tower through these heat exchangers and some valving and different things to make that work. It's actually kind of a complex, as programming goes, it's kind of complex for a simple system. But works pretty well.
We actually had an issue, a year or two ago with the heat. And Jack O'Leary might remember this. Chris Mady, who was our maintenance guy, was able to, when he had the whole floor plan, he was able to keep bouncing around room to room to room using the heat, what do you call it? The heat not exchanger, was that, you just called it something.
Uh,
But he was
the heat
pumping,
exchanger?
he was electrically pumping heat, basically,
Well,
because
he was doing that through the rooftops, I
yeah,
think.
he was able to
Yeah.
get a little heat to get the temperature up in the rooms in the morning before the kids came in. And we were able to survive without a boiler for 2 days, believe it or not. That's how efficient a new building is too, because it holds everything in. But he was able to use the heat exchange and figure out a way to make it work. It was a miracle that he pulled it off.
Yeah, that was tough. That was a tough time. The boilers burned out. They had them burn out.
And that was a water issue. We had bad water. We did from the town. We got our water, and now we have a water softening system.
So, we regularly deal with complaints about the coldness in the winter by adding to the existing system. The 9-10 building, for example, when the kids come from the high school, go across the sidewalk and up and through the 9-10 entrance, it gets very cold in there in the wintertime. So we had to put an infrared ceiling mounted heater there. The new CTE, the wing that they come out of down by engineering, they keep those doors open for the kids. It gets cold quick. So we had to put a heater in that doorway. So even though we have design systems, we supplement to deal with our particular situation because we operate differently than the engineers think we're going to operate.
Yeah. So real quick, I'm gonna.
The lighting control, Mike, Matt, did you wanna,
Say again.
the lighting control?
Yeah,
parking lot
yeah, I'll
lighting?
hit that here. Let me hit this HVAC thing that I
Okay,
had on my mind
sure.
here. The couple rooftop units, which we talked about rooftops earlier. In this building, your rooftop heat pump, very similar to what you have over at Dingman's. But I did want to hit these energy recovery units. So here at the elementary school, the fresh air does not come independently into each classroom. This is a much higher end system when we start to talk about ventilation. If you can see the graphic here, we're bringing in fresh air through a heat wheel here, which is going to exchange some heat to save you energy. Okay, that's going to enter in through some heat exchangers here in a bypass. That's going to head for the building, right? The air coming back from each room is going through the heat wheel, giving us back that energy, right? So it's returning back through the wheel and into this side, and then we're exhausting it. Where in many cases, earlier we talked about the air returning back to the room. Each room is being exhausted through the energy recovery units. So all the classrooms actually have full-on exhaust. Now, Jack had talked earlier about negative pressure and different things. It is not a negative pressure unit, but the good thing is all that air is exiting, right? So there's 2 large rooftop units up on the roof of that building that handle all the classrooms, all the main classrooms. There are a few handful of them that have a little bit smaller, different systems, but for the most part, these rooftop units, energy recovery units, serve the fresh air to the building. And as you can see just by the graphic, the programming is pretty complex, just like the graphic. So there's a lot going on when we talk about these pieces of equipment here, and they are very important to that building. We've had some controllers break down and have issues with them and had to replace them. When you're in the middle of the winter, when that happens, you're trying to get on that right away and get that stuff repaired. So, but this is a good graphic here to know, at least for that building, that you have really good fresh air as well as exchanged air in that building. Frank had just hit something with the lighting. So in this case, we don't control a lot of the lights throughout the district. There's timers. There's a lot of dial timers. The guys have to go around and change at daylight savings and things like this. At that building, we happen to deal with the lighting. I think a newer facility, it makes it a little easier. But we're able to control the lights and the on and off times and different things, the parking lot lights.
The only point I wanted to make on that is that the system that you made the investment in has the capabilities of doing other things that, if as Marvin said, we try to work with you guys when we see opportunities to help the system operate more efficiently or add things on that we think can save energy. The capabilities are there, so it's an expandable system, and you could add on to it as you need it or think of things that you might want to add to it.
So a couple things just before I wrap up here, some of the things you have the ability to use in the system, the maintenance folks can do. There's a district outside air damper override. We can actually hit that button and every single damper that we are connected to can open to whatever percentage they put in there. So they say, I want to purge that building. I want to let, a whole lot of fresh air in. They can open that right there, override dampers for a period of time, whatever, and then they can shut it off. They can put it on a timer. They can do different things to allow fresh air at different times as needed. So that's kind of a neat feature. There's many different things I can talk about that we can do, things that we've done for other districts. One thing we have done for a few other districts is a purge mode. If any of you have read the ASHRAE documents that have been posted, you'll see ASHRAE recommends some purging pre and post for your classes. While in Paul Pack, we just implemented a 20-minute pre purge and then a 2-hour post purge. So after classes are out, then a 2-hour post purge. It's just another thing that, different people are thinking about at a strange time, so it's something we could do if ever you came across something that you read in an article, you want to bring it up, through Marvin, we can give an answer whether we can do that or not.
We'll be working on the 21, 22, 23 CapEx plan. We want to have those kinds of conversations to see
Sure.
what we can do and if we can afford it.
And those kind of things we can do as part of the service contract. Those implementations we can do because the systems are already here. But if there's additional stuff that we need to add as far as parts and pieces, then we would want to talk about things like that. But when it's programming, we can get after that pretty easily. One thing that I look at here that really, for me, it's pretty important, that you made an investment in temperature sensors. Martin did this a number of years ago. I don't know if you had a freezer fail or what it was, but we put freezer temperatures, loss of food, you don't want to lose your food. These are going to alarm your maintenance staff if freezer temperature rises to a certain extent, so that they know, hey, I better go check that freezer so we don't lose food. So it's not something related to HVAC necessarily, but it's something that we can do and have the ability to alarm the system in case of an issue. You remember if there was an issue that we lost
did.
food? I don't
We did.
remember.
Yeah,
We've had a few
4
times.
or 5 years ago, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about when we did this.
Yeah.
We were filling up,
Yes, it was,
tanks and
yeah.
taking stuff from one school to another.
Yeah.
So we would lose
3
some
weeks
reuse.
before school started, it was not
Yeah.
2 weeks before.
Remember Peg?
We were hauling it.
Peg was filling a whole yellow.
Oh, God.
And taking it to Chihuahua.
That
before
was
I
an
thought.
adventure.
You never know where you'll find me.
Yeah, so I mean, I can go through so many rabbit holes, but we monitor the server room temperatures in case any in the server room gets too hot, you don't want to lose your servers and different things. So we're monitoring those temperatures and alarming them. So those are all just little things that I could keep going on and on and on. But I think that wraps it up for me anyway.
Okay.
Unless you had something else. You wanted to-
We'd like to thank Matt and Frank for coming tonight. It was very informative information.
Well,
I
thank
think
you
did
for
a good
having
work
us.
And see if we can't keep the HVAC and moving forward. Mr. Chairperson, I have a couple of quick things, if you don't mind.
Yep, go ahead.
I was going to give you a pop quiz, as Matt referred to, but I thought about it and you'd probably say you wanted more time and because you hadn't studied. So I'm going to give you the go with the
Answer.
pass-fail system. You all get a pass tonight. Congratulations. And as a reward, I'm going to give you your own personalized DV face mask. Take one and pass them down. And while you're doing that, I'd like to close with tie the HVAC system to our preventative maintenance system, because they do go hand in hand. We have about 600 and some pieces of equipment in the preventative maintenance program. About 400 of them are HVAC related, pumps, condensers or compressors, fans, things like that, dampers. And we perform pre-scheduled maintenance on those pieces of equipment to extend the life, reduce breakdowns. And what is preventative maintenance? We check the belts to see if they're worn, and if they are, we change them. We lubricate, we clean, we check the dampers, make sure they're operational, things like that. And it does save us breakdown time. If you don't do that, it's going to catch up to you. There have been periods when I've been short of people that we have skipped, and we pay for it later on. So the two systems go hand in hand, and that's between what they provide us with and the PM system. That's how we manage the equipment throughout the district. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time.
Thank
you.
you.
The alarms in the system, like, do you get the alarms on the system? Do you get an
Unmute,
alert?
unmute, please.
Oh.
Thank you.
The alarms
Yes,
through the HVAC system. Do you get an alert like on your
Yes.
phone?
yes.
Okay,
I get a text and it says,
so then you know whether it's important to look
Yeah.
like to go there and
and what
See
happens
something,
there is then I make sure that I've got a man covering it, wherever campus, whatever building. And then we get is no longer an alarm after that's taken care of. It's a pretty elaborate system and it's very helpful. It saves, just so you know, when we used to have an HVAC issue and we'd have to call a maintenance person, and it costs you about $100 a trip. So now we get it done at home in 3 or 4 seconds.
So one question I had was, in the event of a power outage, do we automatically have ventilation with a
Well,
outside?
in a case of a power outage, unless the Jace goes down, we have generators that keep us live.
At every school?
Now, we didn't used to have it at the high school, but we get like 97% service with the generators through the district now.
So all this is covered?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for our Pam?
I have a comment and a question. First of all, Marvin, you always amaze me through the years. Seriously, your vast amount of responsibilities in this district and knowledge is amazing. But tonight, I find you are super amazing.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, you
Well,
understand
thank
so
you.
many aspects of functioning that we never even consider.
Yeah.
My other question for the gentleman was, you piqued my interest about how we can purge the air in the new elementary school and bring in a vast amount of fresh air by pushing whatever button that is. So my question is, can that system be put on other systems that may be older?
I don't know if you can unmute me here. How do I do that? Unmute, got it.
I don't know if I'm expressing that adequately to,
Yeah, I think
Technical
I
knowledge.
understand.
Okay.
It's a hard answer because there's so many different systems that are out there. And to be able to exhaust exactly like that would be nearly impossible without a full mechanical upgrade. It's just a matter of the systems in place when the buildings were designed. And I'm saying even structurally in 1970, you know, it would be very difficult for that to happen and would be very costly. But what you do have the ability to do is increase some fresh air, you know, open some areas up and allow air to flow a little bit differently than you used to, you know, and things of that nature. Make sure that exhaust fans are turned on, being able to purge things. Using the systems you have, you'll never be able to adequately exhaust like you're doing at the elementary school.
and I guess where my thinking is headed is we've been a district that always has tried to stay ahead. And I'm thinking of that middle school situation where you do have the 6 classrooms in a somewhat older system. So that may be something this board will consider as we move out of this, you know, phase. Hopefully, we may want to look at that. That's what
I
a
think-
20-year-old system, the
And if I
chiller.
could comment a little bit on just the future is going to wait and see kind of thing. There's going to be a lot of systems that are designed based on this. You know, Frank and I have
sure,
talked about
I
it.
bet, yeah.
The design mechanically is going to change. Buildings are going to change. We've already seen it in hospitals. We do a lot of work in hospitals. The hospitals are operating differently. They're dealing with their air changes differently. So I think you're going to see mechanical systems change. And at that point, maybe your mechanical systems, you know, at least some of them that are older, you could utilize some of that new technology. So, yeah.
And that's where I had said earlier and have it on the agenda that, you know, we're very appreciative anytime we have the opportunity to work with your design professionals so that when a new capital project is happening or you need us, we'll make ourselves available to help with our knowledge of the school district and the system that you have in place, to work with your design professionals so that they can incorporate those things into your system.
Thank you.
Just one
Thank
quick
you.
question. So for the most efficient use of the system, the classroom should have their windows and their doors closed. Is that correct?
I don't think that I'd like to speak exactly to how you want to operate your buildings. I think
Okay.
ASHRAE provides some guidance.
Okay,
It's not my building to really say. I mean, if Marvin wanted to comment, I think he could.
okay.
There's a lot of documentation out from the CDC as well as from ASHRAE. Some of it's conflicting, and if I was to say, I think that it's unfair to you for me to give you,
Okay.
what I feel. So
Rosemary, the hallways are not air conditioned.
Right,
So the units in the rooms and the units on the rooftop are designed to service a certain square footage.
okay,
When you leave the classroom doors open in the hallway, you're drawing that air into the room, overtaxing the system, and we're not able to maintain the temperature.
okay.
So it does affect efficiency and
Right.
cost in that sense. The windows, it's not a big opening. So
Okay.
if you
Okay,
manage the window opening to a reasonable degree,
Okay.
you're probably
okay,
not gonna have much of an impact.
okay. Because some places were saying you should have your windows open to allow
Right.
fresh air to come in, but the
We're-
system allows the
We're
fresh air
not
to come in.
operating as efficient as we can right today
Okay,
because of that.
thank you.
And we told the kids, or I'm sorry, the teachers, that if you want to open your windows in the morning when it's cooler, you can do that. We want the doors closed because the hallways are not air conditioned. So if your doors are open, you're making your system work extra hard because you're letting this hot air from the hallway. But we've told the teachers, if you really want to open your windows to let any fresh air in the morning, you can. But 75 is about the max. Once it reaches 75 degrees, and which is usually, mid to late morning, you should have your windows. If it's 75 outside, your windows should be closed because now you're going to make the system work too hard.
Well, once again, I want to
Thank you
thank
very much.
Frank and Matt for all you've educated us with tonight.
You're welcome.
Hopefully it was helpful.
We really appreciate it. We have a
Thank you
little
for
bit
the
more on the agenda to go through. So you fellows feel free to leave.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Learned a
Appreciate it.
lot, thank you.
Thank you.
So John, as we go forward, I think what we'll do is we'll move to update enrollment,
Thank you very much.
if you don't mind.
Very good.
And then do staffing. 'Cause I know those are pressing questions. And maybe if we have time, we'll get to the food and drink and water after that.
Yeah. Go into your packet. There are the 4 elementary school class sizes as of today. There's the 4 elementary schools with their class sizes as of today. And then there's that chart we've been following all along with the number of in-person, Zoom, DV Cyber, outside Cyber. Julie updated this one today, and Vicky updated the 4 elementary schools. We've worked with the union on a memorandum of agreement to hire some extra bodies temporarily if we needed them because of class size issues. And we went and hired one the other morning because the kindergarten Zoom that we originally had small numbers and we tried to merge the 2 elementary schools, DV and Shahola. Well, it ballooned all the way up to 28 kids. So that didn't work. It worked temporarily, but so we went and hired a temporary elementary teacher. Again, the maximum it would be is for the whole year if we needed the person for less than the year because we go to hybrid or we go to online or whatever, who knows what could happen. So we wanted to have maximum flexibility. So we did go get another person to help with the kindergarten Zoom and we split that between the 2 buildings. So now Shahola has their own kindergarten Zoom, ES has their own kindergarten Zoom. We were going through the numbers today. There are some classes that are bigger, grades that are bigger than others. The one that we're most worried about, and we'd like to go ahead and hire another temporary teacher for this year, is actually Shahola's kindergarten. If right now they're at 24 each and 23 or 24, and this would allow us to go to 3 sections of 16 each, which is much more comparable to what the other schools are at. Shahola has, and I don't know if it's there's just more kids coming to the Woodlands or what, but Shahola's had some their fair share of new kids. And if you've driven through the Woodlands lately, you'll see they're starting to build more homes too. We haven't seen homes built probably since maybe 2006, 2007, where people were truly building spec homes. And now
I
they,
saw one Shorten Homes right now.
oh yeah,
Right?
that's a
Yeah.
modular company from
Yeah.
Dixon City, yeah.
Yeah.
So we may not be done with Shahola as we progress over the course. So, but we're looking, and Peggy, feel free to jump in here, and Vicky's online too. So that right now, that's the one pressing area where we'd like to go hire another temporary teacher. And temporary just means that we're only making a commitment to them up to this full year, but it's not a permanent tenure track position where they're automatically coming back next year. This is an unusual year. The union has worked with us to figure out that, hey, they get it too. This is unusual, but we're just trying to plug holes where we can because the enrollment keeps changing so much. So
This would be an in classroom.
yeah, it'd be another in classroom, and that would take them from 2 at 23 and 24 to 3 at about 16 each. And I got a feeling 16 won't be the end though, at the rate
Right.
people are coming,
But at
particularly
least
at
we've
Shaw.
got the room for.
Yeah, we got room for growth to absorb it.
What,
The classroom is just really tight. I was up there yesterday and Don was up there today, and Vicky was up there today. It's just really tight. I mean, the desk is tight, it's tough set. There was no way to have snack in the room with any kind of 6-foot distancing without taking half the class out. So all of those things that are, just important socialization for the kids. As much as you get everything out of their family, and you get everything out of them as far out as you can, but there's only so far you can go with desks in the classroom, and they really are. I mean, they're against the window and the air handlers, and against the coat room on the other end in both rooms. So, and they're those 2 kindergarten classrooms at the end of the A hallway are actually 2 of the biggest rooms in the building, other than downstairs. So if they're that tight,
That's great. How soon does the classroom start?
We're gonna see how fast. Yeah, the goal is to see if we can pull it off by Tuesday.
Okay, good news.
Aaron Weston's already begun working on class lists and some possible changes and stuff like that. 3rd grade and 4th grade have similar sizes, but
Right.
the
But
kids
they're
are
third grade
older.
and 26.
It's a little different with older kids than it is with kindergartners. And for example, like down in 4th grade, downstairs, those rooms
Those
are
rooms are
much
big.
bigger
Yeah.
than the kindergarten rooms are upstairs.
I
So-
do think that the 3rd grade, I mean, there's 26 in
26.
person in each of the 3rd grade classrooms. So I think that we need to really watch that one because
Yeah.
if we're going to hire teachers and we're going to split classes, I think that we need to look at doing the 3rd grade as well, because, I mean, I asked you last week, what number, at what point were we going to split classes, and you said 26. So
That's
we're at
usually as high,
26.
that's as high as we usually go, right? Usually when it goes to 27, we usually split because we had to do it with kindergarten at Shahola
And
2
I
years
think
ago.
that the
We
27 in the
fourth
3rd
grade 2
grade
years ago.
classroom in a normal year is manageable. I think that this year, and I know that we've said it before, and I think that many of the board members have concurred that, if we need to hire more teachers, if we have the classroom space, then I think that we need to. And
Mhm.
me personally, I think that we need to split 3rd grade as well.
And I just don't think we can do any more tightening with the reading team.
No.
No,
And
hire
I don't
somebody,
think that we
hire
should be pulling more
somebody.
reading specialists. I think that we need to look at hiring, whether it be a long-term substitute position. I don't know exactly how.
Well, in terms of rate, what we were doing with the other people that we talked about, the FSCR rate, we were doing the same for these substitutes for the first 90 days, and then the 91st day, they would go on step 1 prorated for the balance of the year.
Okay.
So, and that's how we were kind of trying to mitigate some of the expense from it, but also be fair, because these
Right.
teachers are, these
Doing it
these
all.
folks are coming in and they're doing the deal. and
Yeah,
they're
right.
teaching every
Absolutely.
day, so.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty intense
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
walk into.
So I think that if, Mr. Weston is working on class sizes and lists and stuff like that, then I think that we need to look at 3rd grade as well. Because
Did
we're
you
at
start
26 and 26.
interviewing already?
We're pulling resumes and starting to look at people, but we didn't want to really move forward without, and we generally have a fairly substantial elementary pool, but this year, honestly, we didn't do a lot of interviewing because we didn't have any permanent openings this spring. We had 1 transfer into a position from a special education position, so we didn't really have that list that we typically do, but we are we're going to our sub pool, of people that we know that are good and strong, people that have worked here before. That's kind of our first, first go-to, and, but we'll get on it.
I think
with
it's a
your
good
permission
idea.
Tomorrow.
Yep. While you interview for that kindergarten position, keep your eye open for the third grade
I mean, if you
position
guys feel
also.
like you're okay with the money for this year as a temporary hold, and we'll go do it.
I think you need to do third grade.
Well, we
as
can't make a
Well, I'm
decision
even
at
looking
this
at fourth.
meeting.
Yeah, we can
But-
take,
but
committee
next
can
Thursday,
take
we
that
can
to
make
the
that
board.
call.
So many
But
times,
we would-
fourth needs to be
Well,
looked at.
you guys, you don't have to make a decision because it's not a voting meeting,
Right.
but I get your.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
you got it, okay.
And we're hiring a.
We
sub-
know
Oh,
you're very
Jack.
perceptive there.
We're hiring a FFCR sub, which is not necessarily a voting meeting. We're hiring a sub.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a matter of whether or not you're okay with reducing class
Right,
size.
So
okay.
Jack,
Yeah.
that computer is on.
How, when they go to step at 90 days, what's their salary then?
It's a prorate, if it's prorated step one, it's 304 a day.
304, so it's not even
Right.
$100 more than what we're giving them now, so that's
Right.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's an added cost, but it's not as significant as a step one
Yes,
from
right,
day
From
one
day one.
for 180 days.
And
And
they
it
don't
helps
get
us get
benefits.
through this situation.
And they don't get
Mhm.
benefits,
They,
correct?
they do get
do
benefits
They will kick
after
in
90
after
days.
90 days.
At
Yeah.
90
Okay.
days, they get benefits.
And it's 90
But not
calendar.
90
first time.
calendar
90
days, so
calendar
it's
days.
approximately November, December.
It's
90
clock
calendar
down.
days,
Only
and
fair.
a continuous
Okay.
assignment.
Like,
Whereas
yeah,
the
but
step
what are the
one is
calendar and then
90
what-
school days. So there's two
Gotcha.
different things, federal
Okay.
law
Yeah.
and our
Gotcha.
rule. Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And we have the classrums for this
Yeah,
because.
well, we took reading specialists out of their classroom, so we have the classroom. Yeah. And special area teachers are pushing in, so they
Right.
do.
Okay,
It's gonna
good.
be, it will be a scheduled building issue to now add sections, but it can be done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure we got the staffing issue before we did
Right.
anything else. That was really
Okay.
important. So Jack, John, we can get to food, drink, and water? Thanks.
Who wants to start?
We've been working with Justin, and he's been really closely monitoring the Fed plan and the school lunch and so on. We had discussions about this in August, the possibilities of what we can do. And obviously today, earlier this week, the guidance was speculated, but it came out today. So we will be able to provide free and reduced lunch for all students through the end of the school year, as long as the fund remains solvent with the federal government. So all students K-12 will be eligible for December 31st, will be eligible for free meals, regardless of whether or not they qualify for the free and reduced lunch. We still want people to go through the application process if they believe they're eligible, because we want that continuity January 1st for them to be able to continue to receive those services. So message went out to the community this evening about 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I got it when I was here.
Wow,
What did
that's-
I do?
Yeah.
What's going
Yeah.
on? What's in my
That is-
And we
That's
will,
wonderful.
there's a few hoops Justin's gonna jump through just to make sure, because during the summer, it's basically a continuation of the summer program. And 3 of our buildings were approved for that distribution, so he just has to make sure we can do it at all buildings. That doesn't appear to be a problem. He's already checked it out with his folks at on the state level. And we will continue to do meal distribution at the 3 sites that we did over the summer. So if anybody is doing Zoom instruction from home and so on, they will be able to come in and get the meals. And it's also for DV cyber students, they're also eligible, and anyone homeschooling. It's anyone living in our community are eligible to receive free and reduced meals, school age, so K-12. So we'll just have to track it. We don't even have to, run any money. So parents will no longer have to put money into their student lunchbox account.
And we all just did yesterday, you know.
Yeah,
that,
so it'll freeze
Save
there
it till
till January when you need
Till
it,
after
so.
January.
Well,
So-
that is really, really good news.
In fact, those
Great
families that are
news.
zooming, how are we getting that food out to them?
They'll come and pick it up.
They'll
That's
come and pick it up,
Yep,
okay?
Yep,
And
and we'll have it, will be set hours that we will let people know. And obviously it'll be the same locations, the front of the high school, the front of Dingman's Elementary,
and Shahola Elementary School in the front doors.
Okay.
Will it just be a distribution, or are you still gonna have to scan the students?
No scanning.
So you don't have,
All we have to do is a head count. How many meals have we distributed?
Okay.
How many breakfasts, how many lunches, and so on. So there won't be any need for anyone to, any student will be able to go through the line and get a meal or
Wow.
have it delivered to them, depending on the building and how they're structuring their lunches.
So every student is allowed to have breakfast as well.
Absolutely.
Breakfast and lunch.
Correct.
Will students be able to buy like if they want double lunch, will they be able to buy a second lunch? How will that work?
I suppose they could if they have their card and they want to scan it. At this point, we're just getting up to speed with, making sure we have, but I'm certain they could. They could before, so I don't see
Right.
why you couldn't. That would just be charged back to the parent's account.
Right.
Or rather the student's account.
Are you asking for a personal reason?
Asking for a friend.
You know who likes double lunch, right?
Double breakfast, double lunch, double water. Keep racking up the bill.
You're on mute, just so you. Well, you're not.
Well,
You have a
that's
question?
great news.
not related to that, no.
So that's great news.
Mhm.
The last item is just miscellaneous that the board or the community might have. John, are you able to get questions from the community?
Corey was the last day,
Okay,
but last I knew, he was just forwarding things that were operational, not about just emails in general about the first week. So
okay,
I've been doling them out to the principals while we've been doing them.
okay, good. Any other questions?
I
from-
have one question.
Okay, let's
you
start with
go.
Dawn.
Cheers, go ahead.
The Digman Delaware Elementary School, who are the Zoom teachers?
Oh, I can tell you that.
I'm sorry,
I think
it's the only one
have to
that's
put the
not.
asterisks on it. The third grade is Mrs. Crucio. I'm sorry, I didn't put my mic on.
No.
Jessica, I can tell you.
And Mrs. Despodo, our third grade. So Blum and Despodo. And then fourth grade, it is Kuttenberg, Lantowski, and Caitlin. Oh, she got cut off there. didn't she?
McAndrew.
Caitlin McAndrew, who got cut off. There's three of them. And then in fifth grade, it is DePillo and Lures.
Thank you.
And Vicky, did you want to say something? I see you're unmuted.
Oh, no, I was just, if he didn't know the names, I was just going to jump in.
Okay, thank you.
Didn't think I knew.
So I do. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Dawn was next.
Oh, okay, yeah, and then.
I just had a
Go around the
question.
table.
Sorry?
No, we're gonna go around the table.
I had a question related to, I think it's the CARES Act special needs funding. We had a brief mention that we got 6,000 something dollars, and since everything's come out that, neighboring districts got 20 and 30,000. I couldn't find what the formula was, but I know it was somehow formula driven. And if you have to wait till the next meeting to give us that answer, I'm just wondering why.
Yeah, I have no idea unless it's based on our census and free and reduced lunch numbers. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I can certainly look into that. Usually it's based on your federal programs numbers, and we get less federal programs numbers than
That much less though?
Stroudsburg
It
or
just seems so
Walpack. Yeah.
huge of a discrepancy,
So, but I certainly can try to get that
Okay.
information. And it came out in the grant was opened yesterday, and Diana and Cheryl are working on it now.
The next batch, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is free and reduced, and a lot of our buildings are around 30% or in the 30s. And some of our neighbor schools are well over 50.
Or 60.
Yes, or 60, some of them, believe it or not. Even Pawpack's over 50% total for their whole district, which is a lot higher than ours. So they always tend to do better on those kinds of draws of money that are based on your economics.
Yeah, and I'm just curious how the formula works.
And I'll-
Because it definitely wasn't, if they have half as many more, free and reduced, they got 6 times more. So that's,
Yep.
just wondering how that works.
Based on
Even that
standard
could be online.
deviation. Yes,
Fuzzy math.
yeah.
Mine's actually just simple.
Felicia,
Are
yeah.
Zoomers allowed to take the late bus home?
You mean if they're here for practice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's it.
As long as they wear a mask.
They have to wear a mask.
Roger that.
Pam?
And my question is, if a student is at lunch sitting with their cohort group with 6 foot of distancing, but they choose not to eat lunch, may they take their mask off at that time? They may. Okay.
Once they sit down, kind of like a restaurant.
Mhm.
Once you sit down and there's the appropriate distancing.
Okay. Thank you.
I have another question about. I noticed that the governor said that now we can have viewers, visitors at sports events. And it was saying 250 people can be at a sporting event like football. I was wondering, what is the capacity of our stadium?
Our stadium, we put over 7 times 4 times 5. We're over 3,500.
3,500?
Yeah, because we
So 250 isn't that
right.
many.
And what we are talking about is the only reason I give you that number is because we do 7 tickets times almost. We
Okay.
had up for my first year here, we had 475 graduates and gave them each 7 tickets.
Okay.
Now it's backed off. It's about 100 less kids.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so therefore you have 700 less
Okay.
tickets to give out. But so that's not a capacity issue. Our issue is we are talking about things like having the band perform before they usually your home band performs before a game,
Right.
and your visitors perform at halftime. Well, most likely what happens is the visiting band will not come.
Right.
It'll just be the home band. They'll perform before the game, perhaps while the football team is in the field house. So then you don't have to count them both
Count
at the
them
same
both.
time.
Okay.
They'll play their show beforehand and leave. Then the football team comes out to play. And then we talked about limiting the suiting up of kids to only 50 players
Okay.
on a Friday night and have the other team do 50. And then you'd have your cheerleaders, varsity only, not varsity and JV together.
Right.
These would be all the little things so that we can let parents come see their kids play.
Okay.
You know, so,
So
we're
you're
talking about
talking
doing
about
tickets almost
maybe-
like you do a graduation, where each player would get
We
2
get
tickets.
2 tickets, and that would be it.
That kind of thing. We're still fleshing it out. We have some time. We got almost a month before football. All the other sports are fine because we don't have
That kind of.
we don't have 250 people
Right.
at other games other than
game,
Friday
yeah.
night. Even your lower levels of football, you don't. You know, but we have to orchestrate Friday nights starting in October.
Okay. Now, that's when our football
We won't
games
have
will
games till-
start in October?
We won't have games till October.
So,
Yeah.
okay. My other question was about, I know sports are starting. What about other extracurricular activities at the high school? Are they starting or are they on hold or?
They're gonna, well, they haven't done anything this week,
Right.
obviously, but you will start to see clubs start to come back.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll probably start up after Labor Day, then once the advisors get a deep breath and get 3 days under their belt as
Get through the
teachers,
first couple
then
weeks
they'll
of
start
school.
thinking of the Rachel's Challenge and all the different clubs.
Okay. And I also noticed that there was a resolution against racial inequality that the
From-
boards can.
From PSBA,
Yeah.
yes.
Are we going to sign that resolution?
Pleasure of the board, certainly,
Of
yeah.
course.
Would you like to put
Okay.
it on the
Yes.
September agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think you
Yes.
should talk to your Wayne Highlands, Wallenpaupack, and Pocono Mountain superintendents and tell them to do the resolution about charter or cyber school.
Mhm.
Nope.
And just because you brought up the racial inequality, so on, I would urge you to please take a look at all the board policies that you have in there because there's a lot of changes due to the Title IX legislation changes. And there are new policies and a lot of revised policies that are there. And we kind of just, last week, we kind of just went through, or 2 weeks ago, and said, hey, there are policies in there, take a look. But there are quite a few changes or brand new policies there.
Craig, is there anything outstanding that we should look at immediately?
No, but it's a lot of just about harassment
Okay.
and about, fairness and a lot of it. So it's, not, and it's all based on the new legislation. So it's,
And
Okay.
we'll introduce each one at the work session.
Okay. Yeah.
Jess?
I used my question.
Okay.
I thought we were going the other way.
Sorry. Jack, any questions?
Jess, you can go again.
Okay. Thank you. So for next week, I was thinking about maybe a demonstration of Schoology. I think I learned how to say it. As part of our agenda. We only have an hour next week. We went a little over tonight. That was one of my suggestions. And then Power Schools, that's part of Schoology, right? Power Schools. I think Power Schools owns Schoology or something like that. and perhaps we can get a live demonstration of what the kids are looking at on Zoom so that we can understand it. So maybe even if you can set it up remotely, maybe record a class. Yeah. So we'll see what's happening. And then any other items for reopening? We touched on some things that are not reopening tonight, but anything about reopening that you want to discuss going forward? I know we talked about DV Cyber Academy, which maybe can be another 45-minute presentation the next week. And for the public, we are going to do this for at least the whole month of September and October. So we're really trying to stay on top of all the events that are taking place. So DV Cyber, we haven't had an update on that in a long time. So Schoology next week, DV Cyber the following week. And then you can.
We're good for now because we'll see what transpires. If
Right.
not, the other thing we do is we can do nurses and then close contact tracing. We can do that 2 weeks out. If
As we
don't
go.
have anything else that pops up in between.
Because every week we're going to want to hear about the first 2 days, the first week, the first 2 weeks.
I would think a good thing to talk about would be the Zoom, because God forbid we got to go back. There's a snowstorm, there's electricity out or anything like that. And I can tell you the Zoom for my children has been absolutely perfect, but I just had to leave my house in Matamoros and come down here because I couldn't Zoom. And Corey is Zooming from home, not 5 blocks from me, and his is perfect and mine is not. And it gets frustrating.
Sure.
But what I'm really concerned more about is that when you hear the children at home are missing out on portions of the class of the education. So I think we have to really, Zoom is what it is and the internet is what it is and where we are. But I think we have to talk about those because that's where we can lose children. And that's where I hear the frustration. And I've heard quite a few parents say that they were wanting to give up on Zoom already and go a cyber route. And I really believe, and I think we all believe that a child is better with a DV educator in front of them, whether they be in person or on screen. So I just think that's an area.
So
through
Schoology
nobody's
and
fault.
Zoom, John, next week.
Through nobody's fault. It just is what it is. We have to make sure we have a good backup to that.
I just think the thing is, Jack, too, that what parents perhaps don't realize, they can go to cyber, but they only get a certain number of live lessons per week versus Zooming for the greater part of the day. Even if the internet is going in or out or having troubleshooting issues, the teacher's there. And they can cycle back if the internet goes out or whatever, and it's live all the time. It's not, okay, go in at 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon for your ELA lesson for the week, and everything else is worksheets that are posted. So I just think that what cyber looks like versus what Zoom and Schoology and DV teachers looks like, it's a world of difference. And clearly having a professional educator from our own district knowing our own curriculum is going to be superior to anything else that's offered out there on cyber.
That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, this group as a board, we may not always agree on things, but the one thing I'm sure we all agree on is we want our students sitting in front of a DV educator because that's so much better than anything else. We don't want kids losing that opportunity and leaving our DV educators to go to cyber academies because they're not going to get the same quality education. We're all in agreement on that.
Are the current Zoom problems something within our control or something out of our control?
Well, I was just going to do a segue. I think I said it at the beginning, but I just want to say to the parents out there, if you're Zooming, first of all, we ask you to please be patient. It's only day 2. And but second of all, don't email me or the school board. Email directly to the teacher where you're having a problem so that we can start tracking down to find out, is it an issue on our end with technology? Is it an issue on our end at a certain wing? Because maybe there's internet issues in the wing. Or is it the Chromebook that you borrowed? Or is it your reliability of your internet at home? It could be a multitude of things, like Jack said. So we got to try to figure, the more we know, the better we can kind of troubleshoot this. But please contact the teacher involved. And if you lose internet, say for 10 minutes or whatever, do the email to the teacher. Hey, just so you know, I missed the last 10 minutes because internet conked out or whatever, just to keep your teachers in the loop and so that they can work, because the 99% of the things will be solved at the school level.
I told at least 15 people today to contact school board at dvsd.org. I thought that's what we were doing with questions. No.
And well,
Not to get it solved.
but not operational stuff. So what happened is Corey sent them all to me because we handle all that stuff. You guys are the legislative body. You don't care. I mean, you don't even
Yeah.
have the time. You know, you guys don't have the time to answer those emails in the middle of the day.
I didn't
so.
want to send people that route, but I thought that was the route that we had said. The questions, we're not going to ask DV anymore, dvsd.org. Because
Oh,
I
that-
sent like 15 people to you today.
Yeah, I know. But what Corey
Sorry.
said, what Corey said the other night was that was during the meeting, so he could monitor them right from his phone.
Okay.
To just go to the DV email. And to the folks at home, the DV email isn't monitored all the time, whereas we're here, so we monitor it. So that's why we say go right to the buildings wherever your child is, go to that building or buildings if it's multiple kids, so we can get right to the source ASAP, and then they can get the IT department involved as well. Okay.
And it might be.
I
Go
just
ahead.
have to say today, I was in Michelle DePilla's classroom at 5th grade at Dingman's Elementary, and Joyce Sweller was there, and they were working together, child by child, over the lunchtime to say, okay, well, you were on Zoom, but you're not getting into Schoology. So walking the kids through step by step, and they didn't take a lunch break. They were there with the kids going through step by step to make sure that all of those children are, I mean, our teachers are, and that's just one example. I walked into 2 other Zoom classes. I was talking to the kids, how's their day? What are they learning? You know, and Danielle Blom's class, they were talking about mutations and things like that. So it was just like really, it was just really, and it's so uplifting to have the kids back. I can't tell
Right.
you
Yeah.
how much, just to see the children, whether they're in class or on Zoom, but as much as the kids need to be there, we need them to be here. I mean, I mean, whatever the capacity is, it's just wonderful to see the kids on Zoom, and it's wonderful to see the kids in the classrooms. It's got to be uplifting for the educators as well, because we've been working 6 months to get them here, so it's really great.
Corey has one.
So if they have a problem with technology, they call technology. If
They
they
call their class, their
call your
school.
Let your teacher know.
teacher, principal, and on the way up. Same as
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Can I jump in?
same chain of command we've always followed.
Right.
Vicky, we're gonna wait till we hear from Corey.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to clarify quick was that at the last meeting, during the meetings, it's easier to send it to the school board in general, send it to Ask DV, so it goes right to John and his crew from the operational end. And then just one other thing for a future topic, Jack, while I have you on the phone, is I just want to know, or we should know more about virtual and traditional student support services moving forward, you know, such as tutoring, mental health, things along those lines for a future meeting. So thanks.
Very thank you. Vicky,
Yeah, I just want to say, if there's an issue, any kind of tech issue, they need to either call the building office or they can get in touch with the teacher who will put in a work order ticket that goes directly to the tech department, and that's how we're handling them. With 7 schools and 4,500 kids, I can't have everybody calling my one secretary to take all those calls. We have a system in place, and that's the system we put in place, and the building secretaries have been phenomenal in handling all of that stuff. They know the questions to ask, and then they put in the ticket, and my guys have been attacking them for the last 2 days. I will say things have been really good. None of the issues were issues that we don't normally deal with. I forgot my password. I don't know how to get on this. Most of them are, for lack of a better word, user error or just not knowing. And we've solved, I would say, the majority of them. It was nothing that was something that wasn't working the way it was supposed to be working. And I'll agree with Peg. I toured all 4 buildings yesterday and today and stopped in every room for the elementaries to see how those Zoom classrooms were going. And the kids were waving and they were happy, and the teachers were, a lot of them said, wow, I'm like so surprised this is going really well. And the kids are really happy and the parents seem really happy. So it doesn't mean that things are perfect. It doesn't mean that technology always works, as we know. But you know, we are tackling it on all sides. And if they do have an issue, they just need to call the building that their student is in, give them the issue, and they will put in the ticket and we will handle it as soon as we get it. So
thank you, Vicky.
sure.
And just as a point of reference, we were having Zoom problems at my home out in Dingman's. We called Blue Ridge Cable. The problem was our modem was old. So they said, we're going to send you a new modem. They did. and it went from 100 megabytes per second to 150 megabytes per second. But even better, for 1 year, there's a discount. So you can get 10 or 15 bucks off a month. Get that out to the community.
Excellent.
I don't know what the cable is around here. Is it old Blue Ridge, the whole?
No.
No.
Down here, it's Optimum.
With Optimum, Jack, exactly what you were saying. In my house, when I got the high speed, when this started in March, I had Verizon DSL, which was always fine, except not for this. So I went to Optimum and they gave me 300 megabytes for the price of 100. And I think I download speedtest.net or whatever, and I'm pulling 343. Yet tonight, even with 340 something, my Zoom is kind of not good. So it's a hit and miss proposition, but you can get good deals out there right now.
I think at the middle school and the high school level, because the teachers have kids in their classroom and Zoom kids, I think it's a little trickier for them. And it might be about just contacting the teacher and say, adjust your mic, or can you speak a little bit louder, or make sure that when you're giving instructions, you're close enough to that computer so that the kids at home can hear it. And it's just a learning curve, and it's day 2. So let's be a little patient here. You know?
Yeah, the kids barely know the teacher, so they're probably a little reticent to say, hey, can you speak up, or I can't hear you. But by next week, they probably won't be. They'll be very willing to share.
I actually think it'd be a great help for the teachers if they get a nice email from a parent saying, you know, I can't hear you in the back of the room, because the teachers need that feedback, you know? So I think that'd be, you know, to get a nice email.
And that's what I've been telling the parents tonight, as I've been answering the emails that have been going through the school board website, and Corey's been sharing with you guys, and I've been answering them all to the parents. Is that we appreciate it, because we can't fix it if we don't know. But if it's an individual teacher issue, email the teacher so they know they're walking too far from the mic, or they're in the back of the room and it's hard to hear, because they need to know that right away so that they can make little tweaks to the way they're presenting.
So I also was walking too far from the mic at home during meetings, and I bought a little Bluetooth mic that goes right here, and now you can walk all around the room.
And that also helps if you've got the earplugs with the little microphone on them. Even if you're just plugged in next to it, it'll help for the student to be heard better by the teacher. And that way they're listening without any background noise from their house as well. So there are little things like that. And it's a teacher, our teachers are used to teaching to a class. So there is an adjustment. I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things I was going to bring up. Talk to the teacher, because they want to help, you know, and they're learning as they go as well. So, and I just had one more thing. You're going to kill me for bringing this up again, but can we just get out there more in all calls and whatever, remind people, take your child's temperature in the morning, you know, just, I hate that, but just bash it over the head, get it out there and keep reminding people, almost a weekly, you know, this is John Bell.
Yeah,
Dr.
well,
Bell,
I'm not doing it every week, just so you know. But I will talk to the building so we can have a coordinated plan, because I want to save mine for certain things, because otherwise you diminish the value
and
of
that's
it.
fine. I
Yeah,
think we just need
but
that reminder. Like there was something on Facebook yesterday or the day before, but not everybody sees that, and I don't remember that specific information going out in all calls. So just those reminders.
We'll plan too, based on when we get feedback. We have an administrative meeting on Tuesday morning via Zoom to tell you, okay, what are the things we're seeing and what do we want to address? Are they common? That we'll do a common message, or are we going to do individual buildings based on the issues at each? So we'll kind of ferret that out Tuesday morning and figure out what's the next round of communication, which would be an all call, either building specific or district specific. So.
Yeah, I was wondering, when you see a certain type of ailment starting to spread, such as strep throat, which is now in the community, if you see that at a particular school, do you convey that to the parents?
Quite honestly, once the school year starts, the communication goes from the principals, because what you'll find is very rarely can I do a call to all 4,400 kids that's applicable to all 4,400 kids, because everything is different in each building and everything's different on the elementary, middle, and high school level. Wearing masks, wash your hands, they're common for everybody. The one we just did an all call to everybody at 6 o'clock, a little before 6, about free meals, that applies to everybody, but very rarely do you get the chance that it's pertinent to everybody. So
yeah, and I have to say, I didn't mean you personally.
yeah, so sometimes we'll have the nurse craft something, you know, that kind of stuff, because there might be lice in a particular building or whatever.
Okay.
you know, that kind of stuff. So not to jinx us, but
That's all we need is lights on top of this.
Yes, you had a question.
Giant lights.
I just wanted to go back to the microphones for a second. I know we had purchased cameras for all of the, obviously the secondary and the high school. Have we thought about purchasing like a Bluetooth microphone for each of
They're not
those
expensive.
teachers?
yeah, the cameras that we bought have built-in microphones. So that there's a camera and a mic in the front of the room, but we haven't gotten that far, you know, it's only day 2.
I guess that's, if this seems to be a common issue for kids who are Zooming, that they're still having a difficult time hearing the teacher over students and background noise.
Yeah.
And I do think that sooner rather than later.
Well,
we
there's
should-
2 issues. Number 1, we're going to monitor because it's too early to know what the real
Right.
issues are.
Yeah.
And number 2, trying to find anything right now of a substantial order is difficult. And
Right.
Even those cameras we got when we bought 250 of them in different installments, and then we went back again just to see if the price went up or anything, and they were out of stock until October. So
Right.
we were so lucky that we got those cameras with the built-in mics when we did. So yeah, so we're struggling in terms that if you need something, we even talked about some cables to make the cameras farther away from the screen, and they're not out there, you know. So we're kind of making a list of what are some ideas that the teachers are giving us, and then what are we doing for pricing, and is there availability? And then as they work through the first couple of weeks, then we'll really kind of decide where's the best bang for our buck. So it's a big experiment. It is. It really is. Yeah, that's true. Some people have different voices. They can boom it from anywhere and they don't need it. So we're trying to sort through all that. But by the end of next week, you know, we'll have 8 school days in, and I think we'll have a better feel of what are the individual needs of different teachers. Some have a powerful voice, some don't. Some move around more than others.
And I
you know.
think that those are just the things to keep in mind. that,
Yeah.
Like you said, as other schools have some of these same issues, everyone's going to be looking to buy
Right.
microphones.
Right.
So if that's something that we can purchase and kind of get ahead of the curve, then even if it's not for everybody, but even if we bought some of them and then get them out to the teachers who need them the most first, do you know what I mean? Especially at that secondary level. I think at the elementary level where there's Zoom only classes, they probably don't need them, but secondary where, you know, I think that, you know, if you have, you know, if you're hearing the same kids who are having difficulty hearing those teachers, well, then we need to get them, you know, something faster than, you know, especially if things are back ordered.
And as they talk to their teachers, the kids talk to their teachers, we can also troubleshoot too to find out if there's issues on the kid end, you know, with the Chromebook we gave them or something like that. So it's,
They can't hear anybody.
Yeah.
Then it's their problem.
right, it's probably, yeah,
Particular
yeah.
teacher, and that's-
Then it could be a particular teacher issue, right, right. But I give the teachers a lot of credit. I mean, to do this, you know, first of all, it's very strange for the teachers on the elementary level to be Zooming. You know, I went by classrooms today where there's just the teacher in the room Zooming, including there were 2 gym teachers in 2 adjoining rooms doing health to the Zoom groups, you know, and that was pretty neat. And to see a kindergarten teacher, she was marching in order, doing like an exercise in the room by herself. You would have thought she was crazy if you didn't know she was on Zoom. So it was really, really cute. And then the secondary is a whole nother issue because now every class is a hybrid, is a combo. So it's even more challenging. So thanks to everybody who's just plugging along one day at a time. We'll get better each day. That's the message. So everybody just needs to be patient as we grow.
Okay, at 8:08, I will say we're done for the night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.